Everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the post that Riot Scruffy put out over on Twitter that detailed what Riot are going to be doing in regards to sort of smaller scale updates throughout the year. Now, Riot believes that their larger projects like champion visual gameplay updates, new champion releases, that sort of thing are all on good track, that there's a middle zone that gives them more flexibility to update things or make general improvements to the game. Now, he goes in length at this a little bit, but I wanted to kind of talk each category he went through and kind of where I see these changes happening and where we could see changes happen in the future. Now, first and foremost, everyone's most excited about the champion changes, of course. Right, so that these sort of updates will be aimed mostly at champions who are overly skewed towards pro play or champions that have game health issues. Now, in terms of overly skewed towards pro play, they do note here that this means champions who have pattern level issues, not power level issues. So what this means is that the champion, when played well, removes their counterplay entirely, rather than a champion who just has a hard-to-execute combo that pros are able to do more frequently than everyone else. A good example of this would be something like Azir Shurima Shuffle, which is a difficult-to-pull-off combo that's a power-level thing, that's not really a pattern-level thing, versus someone like Tahm Kench, for example, who Kench is just really kind of ridiculous because he kind of says, you don't get to interact with us in lane, you don't get to interact with our carry later in the game, I'm just that powerful because I have a basic ability that essentially says you can't kill the target that you want to kill. I will always make sure that they are safe. Another good example of this is Sylas, who, when he first came out, just kind of had an answer for everything. There wasn't really much that Sylas wasn't good at. He just kind of removed the counterplay to him entirely by existing. So these are the kind of things that Riot will be looking at changing as they move forward. Kench update is going to be coming very soon, and it's attempting to address these sort of issues in regards to power or pattern level problems by making Abyssal Voyage more of a engage tool, moving that to his W instead, making it sort of a close range disruption engage tool similar to like Leona's Zenith Blade, whereas his ultimate will be Devour instead, so that is a properly ultimate level ability that when he uses it, yes, it's very powerful, but at least it is an ultimate level cooldown and will be budgeted appropriately. Those are the sorts of things that Riot are going to be looking to change in the future. I can't think of any other champions right now that need that kind of update, but it's good to know that Riot will be looking into it to make sure that champions who do have these pattern level issues will be getting fixed. On top of that, the game health issues. These are champions that are generally balanced, but degrade the quality of the game by having insufficient counterplay or strategies that lower depth and interaction. A good example of this would be something like Akali when she was able to be invisible underneath your own tower, or Aphelios' massive ranged AoE burst on release when he was able to get that Severum ultimate, or sorry, not the Severum ultimate, the Infernum ultimate, and just kind of kill your whole team immediately with that. Those are examples of champions that numerically they might have been balanced, but they did have the issue of degrading the game by just being really frustrating when they were able to do things like that. I would say the Samira changes that are happening on PvE right now are falling into this category as well. I'd say Samira is relatively numerically balanced, but she's very frustrating to deal with because she has sort of things she can do that are difficult or frustrating to for a lot of players to handle. So those are things that I would suggest fall under that category. Again, it's a good thing that Riot are looking into the sort of game health issues. Riot will also be looking at older champions that they feel like need love, because players feel like they aren't keeping up with the current game, regardless of the power level of the champion. I would say Riot used the Rammus upcoming changes as an example of this, as sort of an older champ who is numerically balanced, who is doing just fine on his own, but who isn't able to quite keep up with the current state of the game. Player perception is a very powerful tool before you guys start getting really upset over, well, if the champion's balanced, why are they getting worked at? A lot of times, players' perceptions on a character really do affect their ability to see if a champion is good or bad, strong or weak, that sort of a thing. I mean, to the point where Vladimir, a long time ago, I'm a big fan of the story, Vladimir took a nerf in the patch notes and players were complaining about how bad he felt after the nerf, but the nerf didn't actually go live. The nerf was never actually in the game itself, but despite that, Vladimir's win rate actually dropped on that patch as a result of a perceived nerf, not because he actually was nerfed. So these sort of changes are designed to update these champions to feel like they belong into the modern state of League of Legends, which I do think is a good thing because a lot of older designs just have very sort of uninteractive playstyles or very obvious playstyles, where a lot of newer champions do have sort of flexibility and differences in how they can approach situations and different tools for different jobs, which I really do like as a certain aspect of Riot's design. However, I would say that Riot need to be careful to make sure that the core of the champion stays the same. So that way, the champion doesn't feel radically different after the update. I would say the Rammus change, for example, still feels fine. He still should be this sort of disruptive tank that rockets at you from at high speeds into the middle of your team. And make sure that the game doesn't overly creep towards high mobility and high damage. The Rammus change is why I bring this one up, as he is getting a dash, which I'm a little concerned about. Obviously, it is based on his Powerball. He has to be using that, so it is sort of a 2-ability combo. But again, it's one of those things that I really want to make sure Riot aren't just indexing more into high mobility, high damage when they update these champions, because otherwise they don't feel like they adapt to the core state of the game. I do feel like you really want to make sure that there are enough champions who feel like they are still durable, maybe still reliable, that don't have mobility, that don't have super high damage, that sort of a thing. It'd be really frustrating if Riot took these updates and used it as an excuse to basically put more of these updates in place that make the champions less of who they were before. So that is sort of my hope, but I would love to see more of these updates otherwise, because it really would be good to see a lot of these champions step up and start living up more to their themes and feeling more like they belong in the current state of League of Legends. That would be really cool for me to see. Riot also went on and talked about items and runes as well, and basically saying we're going to be watching these to make sure that they are all hitting their goals. Riot are essentially trying to follow up on preseason items in particular, and make sure that we don't end up in a situation like with the, before the rework, the item shop rework, where there were a lot of items in the shop that either didn't have a clear purpose, or were just generally weak, or just unsatisfying to build. So even if they were numerically good, you never wanted to build it because it just didn't feel that good. And to make sure that there are no must-buy items per class, with obviously some cases accepted. There's always going to be champions who will synergize really well with a particular item or items. But the point here being is that, for the most part, every item in the game is buildable, and every item in the game feels good in the situation where it is powerful. That sort of a thing. So I do like that they're going to be following up on that. I do feel like the game is in a good state as far as this is concerned right now, but it is still nice to know that they will be paying attention to it and trying to do some tweak work as the game continues to develop, and especially as we start getting out of this sort of really odd situation in the game where we're still figuring things out, and Riot are still kind of playing whack-a-mole with this item is too weak, so buff it, this item is too strong, so nerf it, oh no, we buffed that item too much, that sort of a thing. So good to hear that they will be looking into that. Runes as well. Riot are trying to ensure that runes aren't overly complicated. So, something like playing the rune, not the champion, something like Omnistone, for example, that is definitely a rune that you play and you don't play the champion that Omnistone is on. Or runes that are generically too powerful, something like Conqueror, for example, can kind of fall into that category where it's just the best choice in every possible situation, and there is essentially no reason to not go Conk, or where it's just you go Conqueror, and if you are a Conqueror user, you just get a tremendous amount of value off the back of that, right? That's the sort of thing that Riot really want to ensure isn't a thing going forward. So either way, I feel like right now we are in a good spot as far as this is concerned. But like I said, it's good to know that Riot will be paying attention to this going forward and making sure that we don't end up in a situation where we have these super powerful runes or super powerful items that are warping the game. The biggest thing here about Mark Yetter's post, really, I do like all the champion updates, but I'm interested to hear that they aren't going to be looking into or potentially doing champion visual updates. No, I didn't say VGUs, just the VUs. Just updating a champion's visuals, or maybe one or two abilities, like they did with Ezreal, like they've done with Twitch beforehand. They've done it with a handful of champions in the past. I would really love to see more of these updates, especially smaller scale work, and I'm aware of why Riot stopped doing it, because essentially you have to get animators tapped, you have to get riggers on the duty, you have to get modeling artists ready, you have to get particle artists. There's a whole bunch of work that goes into a visual update that you don't necessarily have to do if all you're doing is updating one or two abilities on a champion and keeping them mostly the same from there. So I understand why Riot don't do more visual updates. They talked about this in the past, but I would still love if Riot did start doing more of these visual updates again. I feel like it's a really good, low-effort way to improve the quality of the roster and to really make sure that players, even if a champion is numerically balanced, that the players still want to play them and are sort of considering that champion as an option rather than saying, well, that champion's ugly, so I'm never going to play them. Like I said before, player perception is a big deal. Talking about the Twitch rework, the only thing that changed in the Twitch rework was that his E now no longer removed deadly venom stacks. Everything else, numerically, about the Twitch rework was the exact same as Twitch old. But all of a sudden, Twitch was super popular, getting played in LCS, actually quite powerful champion. Turns out nobody knew because no one wanted to play the sort of ugly old Twitch that we used to see, that sort of a thing. So in that sort of situation, you can kind of see the power of player perceptions and the power of just having a good-looking champion as opposed to having a champion who's maybe a little ugly, who we maybe don't care about, and even if they're numerically good, we just don't want to play at the end of the day. So again, I would love to see some more of these changes in the future. I know Riot basically said they're not going to be doing them, but I would really want to see more of those in the update if Riot think that they have the ability to pull the teams together and make that happen. But those are just my thoughts on all of this. Let me know your thoughts on everything I've talked about today down in the comment section below. I have linked Mark's tweet, so if you want to read his own description on what they're doing, you can go ahead and check that out in the comments below. And if there are any champions or items that you feel do fall into the categories that he's talked about as far as power creep or generally champions that remove counterplay, let me know. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on all that. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.